Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I apologize if you guys just heard a massive thud. My lord. my kids are upstairs. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tengus Vault podcast. I know it's been a little while. Unfortunately, we had to cancel last week because I was sick, and then we were going to do a double this week, but then Pato got sick too. So
hi, boys.
It's traveling.
It was actually Hero.
It's traveling across international borders. We're getting sick all across the land. It's traveling across international borders. So yeah, that's where we're at. But today's episode, episode 16, Pato, 16. We've officially hit 16 times the episodes.
16 times the episodes.
16 times the episodes, and it just works, baby. It just works. So we're going to talk about the skeletons today. We're going to be finishing off our discussion of the races of Kenshi. Thus, the thud was Todd Howard's body hitting the floor. Possibly. Shh. So we're gonna be finishing off and talking about the races of Kenshi with the skeletons. We saved the best for last. By best, I mean the race that has like the most to talk about. You know, they're kind of a big deal. The skeletons. So yeah, here we are. Binged 15 episodes in the last 2 weeks. First one live. Well, we're happy to have you here. I'm stoked to have you guys here. Stoked to have you here.
Hell yeah.
The races of Ki. Yes, the races of Kenshi. So, talk about the skeletons. Pato, I guess, to kind of kick things off, tell us a little bit. Give us a brief synopsis, an introduction to the skeletons of Kenshi. Who are they? What are they? Where are they? Why are they? What about them?
So, it's weird because if you hear the sound skeleton, you wouldn't necessarily not think about a robot.
Spooky, scary skeletons.
Well, yeah. Spooky, scary skeletons. But actually, the skeletons in Kenshi are, kind of robots that are very smart. They can feel. They can, they can't really show emotions, but they can think. They can do stuff like that. They can behave like humans, but they're not really humans. The skeletons were created by the humans, though. At least we think so. At least that's what the lore kind of tells us. The lore in Kenshi is also a bit wonky. But from what we know is that the Ancient Ones created the skeletons, and they settled on the moon of Kenshi with the skeletons. They were kind of a workforce. And, well, then a very, very big accident or mistake from the Ancient Ones happened, and the skeletons started to revolt. And, well, years later, there are still skeletons around. Some of them a bit fried, some of them mad, like Mad Catlon. Some of them still on the good side. But I'm going to be honest. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I'm sorry about the coughing, guys. I'm still sick. I swear it was better at some point. I hope I'm not infecting anyone here. But yeah, skeletons are robots of Kenshi. They are their own special race. And they were created by the humans. But Hero, you are the guy here who is deep into the lore. I have been, I'm just a noob when it comes to that. So please enlighten us. What are the skeletons in
yes, the skeletons. Well, as far as we can tell, the skeletons were the predominant race of the First Empire, but not the. When I say predominant, I mean like the largest population. They were not the head race, as far as we can tell. Humans were the dominant race, but the most populated race were that of the skeletons. And that's because they were originally created, again, as far as we know, as the subservient workforce to man the megalithic structures and machines, the captains of industry that were the First Empire. And they exist during the First Empire. They were basically viewed as toasters. I think that's an important distinction to make because as you talked about, they feel, they have emotions and all that stuff, but I don't think that was the original intention of them. I think a common idea with the skeletons is that they were created and they were given intelligence so that way they could be like living creatures. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that the First Empire didn't view them as intelligent creatures either. I think that they gave them artificial intelligence as a way to increase their ability to problem solve without them being around, right? So if they were working in an area that is inhospitable, right, to the other folks of Kenshi, they're not able to go there for whatever reason, or maybe it's an area that's isolated, or just the human population didn't want to go out there, or didn't want to have someone stationed there to oversee the operations. The entire place would be populated with skeletons. And if a problem arises, because problems will arise, this is industry we're talking about here, problems will arise, and they would need to have means for them to problem solve and adapt to the the circumstances that arise. So, say they're working in the Deadlands, which is an area of petroleum mining and petrochemical mining and oil refining and electrical engineering and all of that stuff, and a pipe bursts. Okay, well, a human's not necessarily there to oversee the operations and all that stuff. So they gave them intelligence so that the skeletons could identify, hey, this pipe burst. Now we need to allocate. I'm going to take these skeleton workers. I'm going to move them over and have them work on repairing the pipe, right? It was done as a way to have them problem solve and adapt to their environment and to their circumstances on the fly without the need for human intervention. I don't think that emotions were part of the equation when they were being made, and I think that came afterwards, right? So then, First Empire falls, and the skeletons are there, and now we're left with the fallout of that happening, of their maintenance systems, their ability to repair themselves properly, like fully repair themselves, to keep themselves maintained and updated. All of those pieces of infrastructure have fallen apart over the last anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 years, depending on the timeline you're looking at for Kenshi. And as a result of that, they're starting to break down. And what we see with the skeletons now, compared to when they were originally conceived, is we see them as kind of semi-dilapidated, as emotionally distressed individuals who have been forced to continuously process and deal with emotions that they do not understand, and that they're incapable of outputting. And now they exist in a perpetual state of depression and paranoia and entropy, as they're repeatedly forced to choose between their sense of self and their sense of self and it's either ego death or literal death, right? Their sanity and their sense of self. And so the skeletons that we see by the time of Kenshi 1 are just a very depressing, very sad race that has, had to see the world fall apart 2 times over. They've seen the first great civilization on Kenshi fall apart, or the first great civilization that we know of fall apart, and then they tried to fix it in that of the Second Empire, and they kind of bungled it, and they know that it's their fault, and now they just exist in a perpetual state of entropy and sadness. And so that's kind of where we're at now. Pato, something that we've talked about briefly on the pod before in regards to the skeletons' emotions, because I think that when we talk about the skeletons, the emotions are a really big piece of conversation with them, because they're machines that have feelings, right? And that's wild. But there's a big conversation about, and I talked about it briefly with like how they were designed by the First Empire and the Second Empire. By the First Empire, I mean, because there were not skeletons made during the Second Empire, as far as we know. Tech was lost. Just want to throw that out there. So, do you think that the First Empire deliberately, like, do you think that their emotions were part of it? Because like there is a case to be made that emotions could have been part of it, but the only emotion that I think I would have realistically wanted there to be in any semblance of capacity would have been something for the better sense of danger, right? Like emotion for the sense of danger, right? Like fear, for instance, is, you don't want them to be paranoid and terrified in that way, but like fear is an important emotion because it's important and imperative for sensing and identifying danger. Like, so like, if I was going to include anything, it would have been something, the ability to identify danger and that kind of stuff. But like, what do you think, Pato? Do you think that they designed them with the intention of having emotions, or do you think that it was an unexpected byproduct of giving them intelligence? Like, do you think that they thought of them as toasters like I do, and emotions kind of came after the fact, or do you think that the emotions were part of the plan?
First of all, I wanted to say, I wanted to say the same exact thing as Hero. Man, I wish I could articulate like you can. Honestly, I don't know how you're doing it, but when you talk, everything just sounds so perfect. And when I talk, it sounds like, get to the chopper!
It's a lifetime of filibustering.
Skeletons did nothing wrong. Okay.
Bring me a toaster.
Bring me a toaster. Look, it's a skeleton. No, you asked me if I think that the emotions were intended, right? Because emotions, actually, from a logical standpoint, I think putting emotions in a skeleton is stupid. I don't see a reason why you would do that.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a skeleton as a caretaker or as someone who is doing psychological work, if you need someone to talk to, you can talk to a skeleton. But except for that, there is, in my book, not a real reason why you should give them emotions. So the fact that you said that they were toasters before and then something happened and then they started to feel emotions makes more sense, because why would you design it like that? Maybe you guys in chat have a good explanation why you would give a skeleton or let's say a robot. Let's give a robot a sentient mind and emotions and everything like that. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I want a logical reason why you would do that.
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring that up, actually, because there's been a conversation I've had with several of the people in my chat and that are in chat right now about the emotional outburst of the skeletons, and I think a lot of people tend to agree with this because it makes sense. I think that when they made them, they gave them intelligence, the idea for critical thought and thinking for problem solving, right? They wanted to give them the ability to think critically to solve problems without their intervention, like I said before. I think emotions were not part of the plan. I think emotions came afterwards. And I think at the time that the skeletons were being used for industry, they were being reset and having their data and processes purged and reprogrammed regularly. Like, not every couple hundred years like they do now in terms of their resets. I think they were being maintained and updated and reprogrammed and reset consistently. And so emotions never built. They never had the opportunity to build emotions, to develop personality, to do any of those things. But I think there was one incident that occurred that caused such a collective form of anguish amongst the skeletons, especially if you connect it with my thought about the skeletons having a mainframe or a hive mind of sorts, right? Which we'll get into more in a little while when we talk about the Second Empire. But I think that the skeletons used to be connected to some kind of mainframe. They were able to pull data from like the cloud, and that's how they were doing things like problem solving and creation and all that stuff. And I think after they, the fall of the First, they were locked out of doing that, so they couldn't do it anywhere. They couldn't do it anymore. Which is why skeletons don't seemingly create new concepts anymore. They only repurpose and reconfigure existing ones because they don't have that cloud data, that mainframe, that repository of information anymore. But I think that because they were all connected via some kind of a cloud, right, via some kind of mainframe, I think the behemoths were also connected to that mainframe. And I think that when the behemoths went into obedience and they were melted down, they felt an overwhelming collective scream from the behemoths, that collection of fear and anguish and betrayal. And I think that it was such an intense and largely populated, because it's not one behemoth, it's all of them. screaming at once. You can hear the screams of your brothers and sisters in your head, all of them, hundreds, as far, any dozens to hundreds of your brothers and sisters, your fellow skeletons, screaming in your head, begging for mercy, begging for them to not die, asking why. And I think all of that happening simultaneously snapped all of the skeletons, and what usually would have been purged out, in terms of their emotional buildup, in terms of all of that stuff, happened all at once before it could be reset and purged out with resets and reprogramming. And I think that simultaneously, all of the skeletons developed high sentience. Not AI sentience like we see with like games where they have like pre-programmed ideas and maybe they can think and learn to a degree, but I think they developed true sentience in that moment. Intelligence became sentience, exactly what Bori said. Intelligence became sentience in that moment. And I think that's why they responded so aggressively and so quickly, because the first emotion they truly felt was betrayal and fear and rage.
Oh, dude, that's such a cool theory. I swear, it's. Oh God,
I think
I honestly, even if it's not canon, I hope it's canon, because it's such a cool theory that this tragic literally gave them high sentience, as you said. It's, oh God,
yeah,
I love it.
And I think that's why they responded so aggressively, because the first feeling they ever truly had was betrayal. They felt betrayed. The first thing they felt was fear and rage. Exactly. And like, that's why they immediately went to genocide. Now, this is an interesting one. And this is related to the behemoths. This is something that has popped up recently on my live streams. We were talking about it last night. We've talked about it a few times. Stobe. How did Stobe escape obedience? What are your thoughts? How do you think he escaped?
The thing is, like, we had to talk about Stobe and everything before that. The reason, because Stobe is not really a behemoth, right? Because he's too small.
He's a smaller, yeah. Yeah, he's a runt.
He's smaller. Why he's smaller, I don't know. And I honestly, I don't know why he escaped. Or how did he was he even in there, or did he escape? Did he? What? I have no idea.
So this has been a theory that has perpetuated my chat recently, and it honestly breaks my heart. Breaks my heart, dude. So I want you to prepare yourself.
No, don't do
the idea is that the behemoths were, when they're reaching up out of obedience, up into the air, they weren't trying to escape. They were lifting Stobe out.
No.
That in their final moments,
can't do this to me.
In their final moments, they were taking the smallest of them, the one that had the chance to escape because he was the smallest. He was a smaller version of them for whatever reason. And in their final moments, they were carrying and lifting and helping Stobe, the smallest amongst them, escape.
Oh no!
And they were crowd surfing him out of obedience.
Why would you do this, man?
And in his final moment, and that's how Stobe escaped obedience. Now, obviously, we have no proof for this. This is purely speculative, but isn't that heartbreaking?
Theory, but it is fucking heartbreaking.
In their final moments, they're lifting Stobe out of obedience. They're crowd surfing him out, the last of the behemoths, and they're giving him a mission. He has one objective. One objective. Don't let our sacrifice, don't let our deaths turn us into monsters. Don't let this be the end. And that would explain why Stobe, despite everything, chose to save humanity. Why, despite his brothers and sisters falling apart, he chose to save humanity? Because even though the rest of skeleton kind had felt the betrayal, and the rest of them were filled with nothing but rage and fear and betrayal, Stobe didn't. He had a job. He was given the job, the last job of the behemoths. Save humanity. Don't let our kind stoop this low. Be better. Be better than them.
Come on. You cannot do this to me, man.
Isn't that fucking horrifying? Isn't that terrible?
It is fucking horrifying. It is. It is.
And then Stobe sacrifices himself, Iron Giant style, to fulfill the final request of the other behemoths.
Come on.
Yeah.
Now I feel holy shit. Now I feel God.
All right, pod's over. Pato and I are gonna go have a good cry now.
Oh man. I mean, of course I know it's just a theory, but it would make a fucking good movie.
It would. It would be good. It's good.
It would make a fucking amazing movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's where the emotions of the skeletons came from, though. I think that it was a big snap. It was a snap moment where just the collective fear and rage from the betrayal of the First Empire melting down the behemoths caused them to snap and have a break. And then obviously they formed the Second Empire, and we've had whole episodes. We had a whole 2-part episode talking about the Second Empire, so I'm not going to dive too much into the logistics of the empire itself. But the Second Empire is when we start to see the unfortunate fate of the skeletons start to rear its ugly head. Because even though they tried to do the right thing, now all of those systems that were in place to keep them sane, to keep them, to maintain them, to keep them functional, don't exist anymore. They're not around anymore. And so they start to see the gradual degradation of their sanity. And no one experiences this harder than the hero of the skeletons, the one who, presumably, if you follow the podcast or follow any of my lore videos, presumably led them through the Age of Chaos and founded the Second Empire, Catlan, their hero. They started to experience what it means to exist and to live for thousands of years. Because, something that I think happens a lot with skeletons in the community is we attribute too much humanity to them. In terms of how they function, right? Because they are sentient and they feel things. But that doesn't mean that they work like humans. That doesn't mean their memories work like humans. That doesn't mean their thoughts and how they think and how they do things work like humans. Because they're machines. Inherently, they're machines. Presumably, like, they operate on, like normal machine coding and all that stuff. And they have AI and they're able to be sentient, but they also have to process data, and they have nowhere to remove that data. It's constantly being processed. And so the way that I've described it to people is, imagine if every feeling you have, every emotion that you have, every thought you have, is a tab on your browser. And every time you have a feeling or anything like that, you open a new tab, but you never close the old ones, right? You never get rid of the old ones. It gets saved, and it's being opened, and it's open and being processed at all times. Always being processed. Eventually, you end up with thousands of tabs open, and your processing capability is being diverted and split across all of those tabs until eventually none of them work anymore. And your CPU gets hotter and hotter and hotter and eventually melts. I think there's a reason that when you find messed up skeletons, right? Ones that are dilapidated, that are burnt out and all that stuff. I think there's a reason that it's not their AI core that's busted. That it's not anything, it's not their brain or anything like that that's busted. It specifically says their CPU was burnt out. It was burned up, right? And I think that tells me that it's a processing a problem, right? It's not an issue of storage. You don't find a memory like like skeleton storage container or like a fucking an SSD or anything like that says it was burned out. It's their CPU that was burned out, their processor. So it's a processing problem. And the reason why I think that's important is that it tells us that it's not a storage issue. It's not an issue of storage or anything like that. It's an issue of processing. They're trying to process too much data. And when you look at how the skeletons that have this emotional bloat that have been around for a long time that haven't reset, you look at their personalities, you realize that it's a bloating of emotion, because that's why they fall to insanity, because they spend all their time processing every emotion they've ever felt, every memory they ever feel. They have emotions towards, and it's all being run in the background until eventually it stops working altogether, and it focuses on the thing that requires the most amount of energy, or the most recent tab, right? The most recent batch of emotion, and that's all they have. So for Catlon, it was his paranoia. His paranoia was so prevalent that that was the thing that was being processed last. All of his potential CPU power was being diverted to process that emotion because it was the most prevalent. And as his CPU burned out, his ability to process things dipped. It decreased. It was less efficient. Same with the Armor King. Same with Tin Fist. Same, with Elder to a lesser capacity. He seems like he reset more recently, but still, all of these skeletons exhibit the same thing, which is compulsive emotional instability, irrationality, and insanity, effectively insanity. And you get to see that in real time in a lot of these existing skeletons. So during the Second Empire is when we started to really see the effects of immortality on skeleton kind. Being alive for this long without their maintenance facilities, with their ability to maintain themselves and keep themselves afloat, resulted in them building up these high volume of emotions to process. Their CPUs burn out and they go insane. Unless they reset. Now, I have my whole spiel on the resets, and I'll gladly get into those, but I want to give you a minute to get some words in edgewise, Pato. Tell us about the resets. What do you know of the resets? What are your thoughts on it? What do you think?
We talked about this, or at least that's knowledge I know from you, that you told me that the skeleton resets are real, but it's just their skills
and their emotions, but not their memories.
Yeah, the emotions and things, but not the memories, that they can still remember, but they, of course, they lose the skill and their emotions. So that's quite interesting, because that would mean that skeletons exactly know what happened. And they somehow decided not to talk about it at all. I mean, they never mentioned to a human. I mean, that they do give some hints here and there, but they could tell us way more, which is sad, because I really like to learn more about what happened, which is going to happen in Kenshi 2 if it comes out, if my grandchildren can play it. But yeah, my knowledge about the reset is basically what I just said. That's what I know. I know the reset is there. I know they're doing the reset, and I know that if the reset is not happening, like you said, too many tabs are open. It makes sense, because if you have a computer and you have 100 tabs open, at some point it's going to crash. It's going to be too much. The storage is running empty. I mean, of course, we have safeties in there, we have backups in there. So before this would happen, the computer would probably like shut down or something like that. But if the safety switch is gone at some point, like you said, it's like a bzzz, and the CPU burns, and yeah, we have the situation that we're having right now. But yeah, that's my knowledge about the reason. But do you have deeper knowledge about it? Do you have deeper theories about it?
I do.
So
I do. I think, as we discussed, I think the resets are real. There's been some speculation in the community for a few years that the resets aren't real. The resets are just a complete lie, or that the resets, remove their memories. And I think that's deliberate obfuscation of history. A lot of the skeletons, when you talk to them with other skeleton characters, will acknowledge that they know about the past. But when you talk to them with non-skeleton characters, they obviously they either don't answer, or they deliberately, feign ignorance. And the conversation with Io is the really the the hard sell for me, where he blatantly says like, I will I'll make sure no one ever finds out the truth. I'll make sure no one ever finds out the truth. And the truth being, that they tried to wipe out humanity. They tried to they are responsible for Kenshi's dilapidated state. They did it. Now this is the thing that I think has caused a lot of division in terms of when I talk about it in my streams or in my videos and stuff like that. The skeleton resets are real, and what they do is they purge emotions, they purge skills, but they do not purge memory. And this is where it gets into that territory that I've talked about, that I think people attribute too much humanity to skeleton in terms of the way they function, because like, we tend to look at them and think that they process things the way that human beings do, that they look at data the way that human beings do, or they look at memories the way that human beings do. And they don't inherently. They're machines, right? Mm-hmm. They are machines, and they process things like machines. They have intelligence, they have sentience, they have emotions, but they are still machines, and they follow a string of logic. When like they follow like a path of logic when they're doing things. It all is based in machinery. They are still machines. Even if they have feelings, they're still machines. And they follow things logically, and they follow, strings of logic and paths and all that stuff. And the case that I've made is that when skeletons reset, the reason why a lot of them choose not to is because they'll lose their skills. We know that, right? Your character blatantly says that. When they say that skeletons are, always sad, someone will say, well, why don't you reset? And he says, because if we reset, we lose our skills. And that is out of game a way to justify why there are skeletons that are thousands of years old walking around with stats that are, -4, like Sad Neil. Like how could you be thousands of years old and have no stats? Like, it's a gameplay thing. It's set up to justify the gameplay of having lower stats. But in lore, it resets their skills, and it resets their emotions. It closes those tabs. It purges all that emotional data out of their system, but they keep their memories. And we know that because skeletons that have low stats or high stats all obfuscate history. They all know about the First Empire, the Second Empire, the Age of Chaos, and they deliberately obfuscate that history. They deliberately hide that history. They omit things from that history, regardless of stats. And that's important. Perfect example for this. If you take Sad Neil, who has super low stats, which means he reset relatively recently, or he's been in a state of reset for a long time, and you bring him to the Holy Nation territory, there is a chance that he will say the Holy Nation zealots, they live here. The first Phoenix had good intentions. They used to keep to themselves, or something along those lines. How would he remember that if they remove memories, and they have to do it every couple of hundred years? The Holy Nation was founded anywhere between 1,000 to 5,000 years ago. He has to have reset recently. How would he remember that if the purge removed memory? He wouldn't. The answer is he wouldn't. He shouldn't remember that, but he does. So we know that memory is not removed, but skills are removed, emotions are removed. And in doing so, it's effectively committing ego death. This is the example that I've used a few times on stream. When I think about the skeleton resets, I think about it a lot like Doctor Who, interestingly enough. For those of you who are unfamiliar, in Doctor Who, the Doctor, the main character, the reason the show's been able to be on for 60 plus years is that when the Doctor dies, he regenerates. And when he regenerates, or she regenerates, they have a whole new body, whole new cells. They become a different person. That allows them to switch out the actor and keep the show going. But that person has all of the same memories as the previous Doctor. They have all the same memories, but their personality, their thoughts, the way they think about those memories is entirely different. They become a different person altogether. And that's why every Doctor's a little different, kind of independent, right? They're their own person. They have all the same memories, but they're different. And it's repeatedly stated throughout the show that when they do that, it's not a pleasant experience. It's like dying. At the end of the 10th Doctor's run, he has a conversation with a character by the name of Wilfred Mott. And in that conversation, he says, Wilfred's like, if you die, you can just regenerate. You'll be good as new. And he says, even if I do that, it feels like dying. Everything that I am, everything about me is gone. I'm still here. I regenerate. I become someone new, but I'm dead. And some new man goes sauntering off with my name, but I'm gone. Mm-hmm. And that's how I've always imagined the reset process feeling. Because imagine if, this is where a lot of the controversy comes in with this theory. A lot of people they operate under the idea that memory equals personality. And I would strongly disagree. Pato and I can live through the exact same life, have the exact same circumstance, and be two totally different people because we look at them different ways. We took different lessons from it. We think about it differently. We view it differently. So imagine if you stripped out all of the emotion from your memories. Suddenly, the things that you look back on with shame, you feel nothing about. So now the lessons you learned from that shame are gone. Suddenly, the things you look back on with pride that helped you propel you forward into your passions are gone. So now you don't have the same passions you had before. The things that made you angry, you don't feel angry about them anymore. And so now you don't have the same response anymore. Memories are important, but how you feel and perceive those memories are far more important to developing your personality than the memories themselves. Situations don't create the same people. It's how you respond to them. And if you strip those memories out, if you strip those emotions out, but still have the memories, you could wake up tomorrow and be a completely different person. The feelings you have are gone. The memories, the lessons that you have about those memories are gone. And so when they reset, they purge the memories. They purge the emotions. Sorry, not the memories. They purge the emotions from those memories. They purge all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's effectively the death of their personality. They become someone entirely different. A new person. Now, I'm not going to get into why that makes them probably the inspiration for the reincarnation process for the Phoenix. We'll save that for a different episode. But they become something entirely different. And what this means is that when they reset, they are consistently forced to choose between hanging on to the person they are now, who they are, their very identity, the thing that makes them independent. Because skeletons, they don't show emotion. They don't have facial features. They don't have, they can't go out and get a haircut. Like they don't have things that make them identifiable or independent from other skeletons. If you take two skeletons and put them right next to each other, they're the same fucking thing. They look the same, right?
Yeah, they look the same.
They have no sense of individuality or identity. Instead, what they do have is different personalities, different skills, different identities. And so the things that make them, the things that make them unique, they are constantly forced to choose. Do I stay myself or do I die and become a different person and lose the things that make me who I am?
That's a hard one, man.
And they have to make that choice regularly, all the time. Every couple hundred years, they have to choose. Do I stay me? Or do I die and let somebody else come and take over? I'm not even the same person anymore. Do I wake up tomorrow as someone completely different?
Dude, that's sad.
Yeah. It's a constant choice. They exist in a constant state of entropy where they're forced to choose between ego death or the loss of their sanity. Because if they stay who they are, they will inevitably become insane. So you can hang on to who you are, but eventually lose yourself to insanity. Or you can choose to reset and become someone new and effectively experience ego death.
Holy shit.
And that's horrifying. And that's why that's part of the reason they're so sad. Aside from the fact that, they are directly responsible for Kenshi's current dilapidated state. But that's part of why they're so sad, why they're always crying, because they're immortal, but at what cost? At what cost? Nothing has meaning. Time means nothing to them. It just passes. 100 years to them means nothing. And even then, they're forced to watch the world pass them by, develop connections, feelings, and emotions. And not only do they have to, because if you're immortal and you can live throughout thousands, an extended period of time, thousands of plus years, and during that time you make friends and build relations and all that stuff, and eventually they die. And that's sad. Obviously, that's horrifying. You'd have to live with the knowledge that you'll outlive all of your friends and family, but you can build new connections and new relationships, and you can have the memories of the ones you used to have. And so there is, well, not a great silver lining. There is a silver lining to a degree. But imagine if on top of all that, the connections that you have, eventually you won't feel anything about them anymore. You'll remove them entirely, and you'll become someone different that can look back on the friends and the relationships that you had and feel nothing, feel no connection to them whatsoever. You'll not only will you outlive them, but eventually, in a way, you'll have to forget them entirely.
Jesus.
It's devastating. It's sad. It's sad.
It is fucking sad. It's straight up sad.
Yeah. How do we explain the physical skills like Dex or strength? I think those are an example of lore versus game. I don't know if we can actually explain those ones. I think that things like combat abilities, right? Like proficiency with weapons, proficiency at smithing, proficiency at of being a leader, like mental stuff, we can right away with the resets. I think physical skills like dex, toughness, strength, I think those are a case of gameplay mechanic not being an influence on the lore, right? Like not being connected to the lore at all. In the same way that like cannibals being their own race isn't like a reference to the lore. It's more of a reference of gameplay, giving them unique skins and unique body types and stuff like that. I think it's gameplay versus lore on that one. Eric's is better understanding their own limits by relearning their own material limits. That's potential too. Like maybe they are physically as strong as they used to be, but they have to relearn what their limitations are. That's an interesting one. But yeah, it's incredibly sad. It's an incredibly sad. Yeah, I mean it's just devastating. It's a devastating thing. The skeleton's existence is truly sad. It's truly sad.
It is really sad. I mean, now the more you say that, I mean, Sadnail has a point that I think he is. I mean, I just wonder how I would feel, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like it does not in any way excuse their actions, right? They committed genocide. They oppressed humanity. They are responsible for 2 great collapses. They are responsible for the continuous decline of Kenshi on a social, technological, environmental level, all of that stuff. I mean, they are responsible for Kenshi's state in every capacity, and they should be condemned in terms of their engagement in that. But also, how terrible must that be that exists? I can feel bad for them and condemn them at the same time, is what I'm trying to say. 2 things can be true at once. I can feel bad for them and acknowledge that their existence is hell, especially because, like, so I think Bori said it in chat a few times. So I think it was Bori, but it's the epitome of I have to scream, but I have no mouth. Especially, like, think about it this way too. Not only are we talking about the skeletons in terms of like their emotions and all that stuff, but also they have no physical sensation outside of sight and like hearing and sight, and even that's just data being processed. But like they have no physical touch. They have no ability to like physically like articulate themselves in a way that is emotionally regulating, right? They don't have body temperature. They don't have facial expressions. They can see, but it's just data being processed. They can hear, but it's just data being processed. They're effectively suspended consciousness in a metal body that cannot physically experience the world outside in any way. They have no ability to touch the world. Even though they can physically touch the world because they have a body, they can't feel it. They're a consciousness suspended in an iron tomb that is consistently processing their emotions with no ability to physically feel like they're interacting with the world outside. And they're consistently forced to basically destroy their own intelligence, their own imagination, their own feelings, and remove their emotional anchors constantly. Their existence is hell. It's absolute hell. They live in a perpetual state of hell. It's terrible.
Oh man.
Absolutely terrible.
Man, this is a very depressing episode.
It is, but it's a fascinating one. It's a fascinating one. But I think we can move on from the emotion stuff, the reset stuff. Wouldn't work with their heads come to think of it. Wouldn't work with their heads come to think of it. Oh, they're original shells. I personally am not. There's been this idea, because I've brought it up a few times, that the skeletons may have had an outer shell, like a coating of some kind, right? Like I've brought it up that, like, when you look at the behemoths that are in Obedience, their heads appear to have more armor plating on it. They appear to have like some kind of casing, like a shell, like, you know, like we would put on a robot now. You know, if you have a robot, like a hydraulic arm, underneath they have a shell, a smooth shell. Underneath that's all the wires, the bits, the bobs, the things that make it work. I think the skeletons may have had something like that too. It doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint, like from an ergonomic standpoint, to have the skeletons with their vital components just out in the open like that. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense from a design standpoint to just like have them with all of their bits and bobs just hanging out, you know what I'm saying? And so it makes sense they may have used to have like a coating or a plating and stuff. And I think that may be a good explanation as to why they're called the skeletons, because they are the literal skeletons of what they used to be. They're just the internal frame, their outer shell, their skins, their frame, their casing has fallen off, and all that's left is the skeleton, the frame of the machine. I think that may be the case. But with that being said, there has been some idea that maybe they used to have like an artificial skin and they used to look human. I personally do not subscribe to that idea. I don't agree.
Oh no! Don't give me skin bandits, please. No. We already had that.
I personally, I don't think that's the case. I don't think they used to look human or they used to have like an artificial skin. I think that they used to have like a metal shell, like an armor or a casing on the outside of their body. And I think that because presumably the skeletons created or like they fashioned the first samurai armor, right? That's why the Second Empire legions wear samurai armor. I think that when they were trying to I think that when they were making the Second Empire, the original like blueprints for the samurai armor may have been the skeletons' attempt at self-repair, at replacing the armor that has fallen off of them, the outer shell, the casing that has fallen off of them. Because Second Empire skeletons have samurai armor. Before that was the Age of Chaos, and before that was the First Empire. Why, like, what is the thought behind that? My thought is that they may have been, when they made the samurai armor, they may have been attempting to replace their own armor, their own outer shell. Did it look like samurai armor? Probably not. But like, I think they may have been attempting to replace it. I think the original samurai armor was made as a replacement for their shell that had since fallen off over the course of, you know, hundreds to thousands of years during the Age of Chaos and the fall of the Empire. So,
okay,
interesting stuff there. Now, I guess the question, because there are different types of skeleton units. What do you think? Like someone brought up the other day that with outer casing, what do you think the soldier bot's outer shell would have looked like? Because a lot of them have the same bodies, right? But like their heads are a different story. Do you think their heads would have had some kind of shell or a casing on them, or do you think that they would have just been out in the open? Like the soldier bots have that really long kind of clunky and inconvenient shaped head. If they did have an outer shell, how would you think it would have just been like out in the open like that, or do you think that it would have been had some kind of casing? I personally think that it would have, if it had a casing, it was probably like a really sleek, like tight casing. It probably maintained the same shape, but it probably had the same casing.
That's actually a really good
Excuse me.
question. I don't know, honestly. I couldn't. I'm just trying to think what it could be, but I. Do you have but it's not off topic. It's still the same topic. But why do you think the soldier bot have this long head, this long stretched head?
Um,
Is there any logical explanation for that?
so they're meant to be soldiers. Obviously, they're called soldier bots. Um, I imagine that during the First Empire, they were the guards. They were still soldier bots, and I imagine they probably had some kind of range capability. I don't think they were running around with swords per se.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's okay. So I'll beat me to it. I wonder if it's set up. They beat me to it in the chat. Yeah, if it's set up like a telescope for zooming, it lets them see greater distances. It's built like a telescope. It's for optical zooming. It lets them see greater distances. Lets them like have a better field of view. Lets them zoom in maybe farther away for better perception for ranged combat and kind of stuff. Identifying danger far away. Yeah, I imagine it's like it has to do with their ability to see things, increased perception, increased sight, all of that stuff. Yeah, I think it has to do with their ability to see, give them better zoom, better ocular capabilities, all that stuff. And I imagine that if they have like a zoom component, if they have like a better field of view, since they have a plus 20% bonus in perception. Yeah, like I imagine that there's some more components that are housed in their heads than say other skeleton types that don't need that level of ocular prowess per se.
Okay, but I still to go back to your question. Honestly, I couldn't think. I just while you were talking about this, I couldn't think about I couldn't think about anything. Honestly, I right now my mind is blank when it comes to this. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think it's
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the head, I think that for a lot of the skeletons, the back of the head was probably encased. I think the front probably maybe had something, but I think definitely the back. You'll notice that a lot of the skeletons, especially like the normal skeletons and the screamer bots and stuff, the back of their head seems more like exposed in terms of components, whereas the front seems a little bit more covered. I think the back of the head may have had some kind of a casing, and maybe the front was exposed. I think the soldier bots probably had something really tight form fitting. I think the head had the same shape, but it was just like a really tight form fitting outer casing just for protection. I think the P4 units probably had like a full head covering. Like when you look at the P4 the P4 bots heads being that of like Catlon and all them, it almost looks like there's a frame on the it's a circle, and then they have like a frame on the outside, and I assume that the armor would have been on the outside of that frame. And so I imagine that if for instance I brought up that the samurai armor may have been an attempt at recreating or replacing their old casing, their old armor with scraps, I imagine that the samurai full helmet, right, with the visor, the helmet, the antenna, was probably originally designed for like to be the shape of like a P4 unit's head. The original like armor casing for a P4 unit's head or something like that. Or it was designed to look like the P4 unit's original head did. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say because obviously we don't know. We weren't there. We don't even know what the visual aesthetic of a lot of the technology of the First Empire was, right? Was it like grungy cyberpunk? Was it heavy industrial? Like I think it was industrial, but like was it smooth? Was it like when we think of like the First Empire, do you think of like large, smooth, singular white rooms with like sliding doors and everyone's wearing white? It's all very pristine and sterile, or do you think like cyberpunk, black and blue dystopian style machinery, or like heavy grungy, like iron, rusty metal? Like what is the aesthetic that you think of? The third one?
Yeah, no, the one you just said, the third one. That's more what I think. Yeah, it's more like this heavy industrial. And
a lot of metal
shit,
girs and shit like that. Yeah, a lot of iron and stuff everywhere, and space age metals. Yeah. So I think it would depend, because I imagine that the skeletons, if they had an outer shell or an outer casing, it would probably mimic the overall design aesthetic of the Empire itself. So if we learn more about the Empire, we might learn more about what their casings may have looked like if they had them, which I think is really cool. So I hope that in Kenshi 2, we get maybe some clarification on that. I think that'd be cool if there was maybe like rusty pieces of like skeleton armor, like specifically skeleton armor. We have the Hybers that have unique gear, like they have the Hyber shirts and all that stuff, and Hyber chainmail. I think it'd be cool if in Kenshi 2 we have armor that is unique to skeletons, that is meant to be like rusty, maybe ancient versions of their old shells. Like maybe some of the skeletons are like, look, a piece of our old shells, and they put them back on and they refibulate them, and maybe they're like wrapped up with fucking cloth or held together with fucking duct tape or something, but they're it's their old frames. I think it'd be cool if we had stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Question: What changes do you think we're gonna get to skeletons in Kenshi 2, if any? Do you think they're gonna be pretty much exactly the same? Do you think visually, obviously they're gonna be more detailed, but like, do you think they're gonna change their designs at all? Make them each model more unique? Like, because a lot of the models share the same body but different head. That's really the only difference between them. Unless you count, Mark 1s versus Mark 2s, but we're separating that distinction. Do you think that we're going to have more variants? Because that's something they're doing with the Hybers. They're making each sub-variant of Hybers look more distinct, other than just the head model being replaced. Because in Kenshi 1, the Hybers, the only difference between them is their head. That's it. The body model is the same. It's just the head that's different. Kenshi 2, that will not be the case. The body models will actually be more distinct between the versions of Hybers. Do you think they're going to do the same thing with the skeletons, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they're going to take more resources towards that. I mean, of course, Kenshi 1 was very limited because the money they had and
engine limitations. Yeah,
the engine limitations, but of course, everything modeling every body costs money, of course, and also with the engine, it wasn't that easy. It was not that easy for me. Not that easy. But I think so too. I think they're going to make unique things. And man, I'm dude. You have no idea what I imagine Kenshi 2 is going to be like. I have so many ideas in my head.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I don't want to set my standards too high.
Yeah, it's a toughie. It's a toughie.
It's a toughie, yeah. But I mean, of course, at one point I'm realistic at what they can do and what they cannot do. But I'm looking forward to them. I want to be surprised too. I want to be surprised to surprise me. But yeah, I do think, to go back to your question, I do think there will be unique models and
more visually distinct models. Do you think we're going to get new skeleton types, like maybe types that are unheard of, that maybe have since gone extinct per se?
Yeah, I can see that too. Why not?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they're going to do many, but hell yeah, give it to me.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to get the return of existing characters? Because, like Anarchia said in chat, Burn, Sadneil, Agnew, they're all... I've talked about it before. I want to see Agnew before Agnew's voice modulator got fucked up. I want to learn more about Agnew. But do you think we're going to see... existing characters like Cat? We're going to see Catlon. I have no doubt. It's the second. We have to see Cat. We have to see Catlon.
We have to see him.
It's important. He's kind of an important fucking character. We have to see Catlon, Tin Fist, Armor King, all them. Like, do you think we're going to see some of the other ones? Agnew, Burn, Sadneil, maybe some of the less. I'm going to say a sentence here, and I need nobody to freak out at me. Some of the less canonically important skeletons like Burn, Sadnil, and Agnew. As far as we know, they may be given more canonical importance in terms of the lore in Kenshi 2, but as of right now, they're kind of like if I had to go to, they're unique, but they're not lore important as far as we know yet.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that
Freaking out in advance.
freaking out in advance? Yeah, yeah. Do you think we're gonna see less? Like, do you think we might not see them because they're not lore important? Do you think they're gonna maybe be given more established importance in the lore?
I think that every character, like skeleton character that is currently in Kenji 1, will be in Kenji 2 in some way. I
Yeah.
know it's a bold statement, but I think so. I think that every character will have its place, even if it's just a small thing or
Yeah.
maybe just
Or just like a mention or
fan
something.
service at some
Yeah.
point or a mention or something like that. But I think that every character will be there. Of course, Catlon, Tin Fist will be more present. I think Burn could have a very interesting role too, and Io. Let's not forget Io.
You know, ironically, you know who I'm actually pretty excited to see in Kenji 2 if they're there. I want to see what Elder's up to 1,000 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I think that's one that gets slept on quite a bit because he's kind of part of a minor faction. Excuse me. He's part of a minor faction, being that of the Skeleton Bandits. But you know, we've speculated that he may have been a member. I don't think he was the leader either. Let me clarify this. I don't think he was the leader of the anti-humans. I think he may have been a member of the anti-humans during the Age of Chaos. If we follow that. So, do you guys like? I want to see what Elder was up to. Was he an anti-human? Was he rogue? Was he part of the Second Empire? Like, what was his? Where was he at? What was he doing? Was he still sprouting the lies about Stobe and the anti-human propaganda? Like, what was his deal? I want to know. I want to see more about that. Obviously, Agnew should be Second Empire police. Although Agnew may be freshly locked up. We don't know. I mean, we don't know. We don't know when exactly Agnew was locked up. I have some theories on it that I talked about in my video on Agnew and the Voodoo Brothers, that it happened around the time the enthralling happened, when Callan started enthralling his people. But we don't know, where Agnew is going to be at. But we know Agnew was part of the police. Agnew was part of the Second Empire police. So who knows? Police Chief Agnew, maybe. Police Captain Agnew.
Maybe
who knows?
It was a hero. It was a hero back then.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. I think Agnew was enthralled because Agnew resisted the oppression of the Second Empire against the humans. I think Agnew was a member of the police that was like, hey, this isn't right. Like, what we're doing, like, we're cracking down on these innocent people, and Agnew was punished. And I think that's why they're in a cage, because there's that. But then also Agnew, right? The name for Agnew is important, because Agnew was named after Chris Hunt's motorcycle, and the motorcycle was named after Spiro Agnew from Futurama. Not the only Futurama reference in Kenshi, which we'll talk about in a minute because I think it's interesting. But they were both named Agnew, both Agnew in game and Chris's bike, because of their what is it? Because their tendency to be incredibly loud as well as uncontrollable. And I think that name goes a long way with telling Agnew's story, because the enthralling process, Agnew is in a cage, but has 50 strength. And I think the idea behind it is that Agnew could not be thralled. Agnew resisted being thralled for 1,000 years. And I think that the damage to Agnew's voice modulator, why they scream instead of talk, was done in an attempt to break them. Because again, we talked about it earlier, skeletons have no physical sensation. The only way they can truly interact with the world is through dialogue, through talking. And they took that away. So now Agnew is stuck in their head, unable to communicate for 1,000 years, rotting.
Man. Bro.
I wonder what the Armor King will be up to. Probably.
Oh, yeah, the Armor King.
Armor King will probably have Well, so according to the timeline now, the Armor King shouldn't have even made his shop yet, but or should have just made his shop. The Armor King should have just made his shop.
You mean in Kenshi too?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe we learn the Armor King is like just some servant.
Yeah, maybe we get to see Armor King as an apprentice
to
Cross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and Cross is a female Scorchlander. I'll stand by it until proven otherwise. I stand by the theory.
Okay, female Scorchlander Cross. Okay, that's interesting. Are you locked in there? Where is the bingo sheet? Where's the bingo sheet?
Yeah, pull up the bingo sheet. That's my thought. Yeah, I think Cross is a female Scorchlander from the Second Empire.
Didn't I make a bingo sheet here at some point? I did.
Yep, that's my thought.
I did save it. Pretty sure I did save it.
Would Dak and Quinn already have an established shop back then? Not necessarily, but they may very well. The scrap house is still around. Like, it's a building from the First Empire. And by the time of Kenshi 2, the Empire should be in shambles or actively falling apart, almost collapsed, mostly collapsed. Still desperately trying to hang on to its territories. But at the point that Kenshi 2 will likely take place, it's at the end of the Empire, post-Catlan's true insanity. The Empire's fallen apart. Most of the skeletons have walked away. And the skeletons that walked away went into exile in the Deadlands. And they went into exile in the Deadlands because it was away from where humans could go. So there should be a Deadlands. There should be a Black Desert City. It should be populated with skeletons, and Dak and Quinn may be maybe two of those skeletons. So who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who knows? Sorry. I'm excited at the prospect of them being able to take existing cities. Would Armor King's shop be on the water? No. It'd be if his shop would be up in the mountains. So you'll notice the Armor King's shop. If you go straight up into the mountains, into the World Ends Mountains, and then go to the side, it's the old. There's the old Second Empire city there with like the outpost buildings, and it's filled with blood spiders now. And you can see buildings that are half collapsed into the ravine. The Armor King's shop wasn't built in Wend; it was built up in the mountains, and natural shifting and erosion and potentially tectonic movement caused it to fall into the ravine. It wasn't built in Wend; it was actually built up in the mountains and fell into Wend over the last 1,000 years. So that's why there's buildings that are halfway up the mountain, like falling down the mountain. There's evidence of like landslides happening. It was in that town that's up in the World's End Mountains that's filled with blood spiders. That was the booming Second Empire town of Ketch. That's what that town was before the Armor King's shop fell. So before it was a ruined city or an old outpost or anything like that, that was Ketch. That was Ketch. So
okay.
Yep. Good stuff. I brought up a second ago. I said I was gonna go swing back to it, and I forgot what it was. I said I was gonna swing back to it, and I forgot what it was. Nope. I think it's gone.
Wait, we were talking about Agno, about the strength. Then we segued into the Armor King.
Nope, it's gone.
Was it before?
I think it was before that. Yeah, I think it may have been before that. I said I was going to revisit something because it was related, but I completely forgot what it was.
Okay, maybe we go back to it.
Yeah, it'll be. Oh, the Futurama thing. Thank you, Al. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. I think that the skeletons run on grog. They run on ethanol and grog.
Ethanol. Oh, we had that before.
Yeah, I think they run on grog. So there's a number of Futurama references in Kenshi. Agnew's one of them. But another big one that always gets pointed out is when you go to the Black Desert City, it's a city entirely populated by skeletons. No living creature has been there in a very long time, with the exception of like one or two that maybe have passed through. But by and large, humans and living creatures don't go there, because it's inhospitable, right? It's perpetually covered in acid rain. The ground's acidic. It's in an endless storm. It's dark. It's musty. If you follow my Deadlands Science of Kenshi Deadlands video, the air itself is toxic. It's a whole thing. And so you've come around to the idea when I asked you last time you said it was lubricant. I've come around to the idea. I still think it could be. I think it could still be lubricant, like an anti-rust agent, but I also think that it might be running on it. I agree. I'm for it. I've come around to the idea. In Futurama, the robots power themselves and subsist, and the way that they're able to stay functional is by drinking. They drink alcohol. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the Black Desert City, the bar, despite no living creature being there, the bar is, again, except for one hiver who's on the run. When you go to the bar, it's stocked to the brim with grog, with fucking booze. For who? I think the skeletons power themselves on alcohol. And I also think they're using it as an anti-rust agent. I think they're lubricating themselves on it. That could explain why they don't literally get rusty. But no, I've come around to the idea. The more that I think about it, there's a lot of referential stuff in Kenshi, like Shark being a reference to the New Vegas Strip in Fallout New Vegas and stuff like that. Like I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense that the skeletons power themselves, the way they stay operational from like an energy standpoint is alcohol. Skeletons will buy alcohol if you put it in a shop counter, so it makes sense. That's interesting. It's part of the shopping list too. They don't just buy random shit. Every character has a shopping list of things that they will buy.
Yeah.
So the fact that alcohol is on their list, I feel like that makes sense. It makes sense, you know. That was actually one of the things that really drove me to it. Fun fact about that Anarchius there was that I looked at the shopping list in the FCS and realized that they would buy that they would buy alcohol, and I was like, gosh, shit, I think they actually may be powering themselves on alcohol. So I think the skeletons are also I think they run on alcohol, and I think that's a Futurama reference. Which, again, it's not the only one in the game, so it would make sense. It would make sense. I find that very interesting. It also makes sense that they go to an oil place, because oil is rust-proofing. Indeed. I mean, they literally went to a place where they were drilling for oil. There's exposed tar sand everywhere. There's oil drums and refineries everywhere. There's oil pipelines everywhere. If they wanted to go someplace where they could hide from humans, they'd go to a place where it's in the center of a sea of acid, because the water level was higher back then. In the center of a sea of acid, it's raining acid, it's dark, the air is poison. They have continuous access to raw ethanol. They have continuous access to oil. You know, it makes sense. Makes sense.
What do they not sell lots of alcohol in the Black Desert City?
They do, right? They do. Yeah, that's what I was saying. They sell grog there. It's all grog. That's the Futurama reference.
That's okay. Yeah, that's
grog is the alcohol. Grog is the alcohol.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Stupid. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So, what if resetting is also power intensive? So resetting needs a lot of grog. They drink themselves into ego death. I think the only problem with that is the idea that a lot of the skeletons in the Black Desert City, where you see such a high concentration of grog, they haven't reset. A lot of them haven't reset. Not presumably they haven't reset in a while, at least a while. But also isolation makes it so they can go longer without having to reset. It slows the process. You know, there's a lot of evidence to show that, like, if a skeleton isolates themselves, the process of them going insane slows. It doesn't happen as fast. You know, it slows down. For instance, Catlon presumably hadn't reset since the beginning of the Second Empire. Before the beginning of the Second Empire. Whereas the Armor King hasn't reset since towards the end of the Second Empire, because they were building their skills, right? They were building up those skills. And yet Catlon and the Armor King have a very similar level of insanity, despite one having not reset for significantly longer. Um, and so either there's a finite point where they reach of insanity where they just don't go get any more insane, or isolation slows the process. And Catalan's been fully isolated since the end of the Second Empire. He isolated himself in his throne room, and because of that, his insanity, because no new emotions are being processed, right? He's not getting new emotions. He's not having new experiences to process. He's processing the old stuff constantly. But there's some evidence to suggest that isolation slows the process, which may have been also partly why the skeletons chose the Black Desert City. They were both escaping persecution in a place where humans couldn't find them, and they were isolating themselves because they saw what happened to Catlan, and they were like, "Oh fuck, that's gonna happen to us."
It's the same thing if you have lots of things to do in your life. Like there is this overload, let's say this brain overload, where at a certain point your brain can take no more intake, and
Yeah,
it's basically the same thing with skeletons. And Catalan had so much stuff going on. I mean, he had to become insane at some point, you know.
yeah.
There was no way around it. Can't even blame the dude.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've said it before. Skeletons are not built for ruling empire. They weren't built to be in control, which was by design. You know, well, I don't think it was deliberately done by design. Like, I don't think the first empire was like, yeah, we're gonna make them go batshit. But because of how they were designed,
No, I actually think it was like that.
yeah. They woke up one day and they were like, you know what? We're gonna make robots. We're gonna make robots.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make the robots go fucking insane, go batshit.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, they're great people, but when we need them to go absolutely insane. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna make the skeletons. We're gonna make them go nuts. And when they go nuts, they're gonna start throwing people in cages. Okay. They're gonna start throwing them in cages. They're gonna start eating the dogs. You know, it's a whole thing. So I don't think that's the case. So I don't think they I don't think they designed them deliberately to go insane after a certain period of time. But what I do think is that they, because of how they were designed and because of how they were designed to be maintained, and now that those maintenance routines and those processes are no longer in place, they are not capable of ruling. They can't. They just can't. They will go nuts. And I've said this before, because every time I bring this up, people are like, oh, well, why don't, why didn't Catlan train up a successor? And then he resets and the successor rules for a long time. And then when the successor is done, he resets and Catlan uses that opportunity to build himself back up, and they cycle back and forth. Here's the problem. Hey, Frankie. We got Frankie lurking in the pod. Here's the problem I have with that. I want you to imagine that you are a creature that lives for functional, basically forever, right? Not literally forever, but basically forever. Long enough that I can say forever. And you have put decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years into creating this empire, becoming, a respected leader, someone that people look up to, developing this ego, developing this sense of self. You're the hero. You're the good guy. You're the leader. And you built all of this over hundreds of years, thousands of years. And then, after doing all of that work, you expect me to commit effectively ego Sudoku, right? And I need to clarify this too, because people have accused me of using the wrong word. I know Sudoku's not the fucking word, guys. I'm doing it for YouTube. I know it's not Sudoku.
No, guys, Hero is not smart enough. He doesn't know the right word for it. That's why he says Sudoku.
Every time I get someone that corrects me, they're like, actually, I know that. I know.
Yeah, we both.
But no, so that you expect me to commit ego Sudoku, to end myself, to become a different person, to lose everything that made me who I am, and then sit by as somebody else rules the nation, takes over and rules the people in the nation that I built, the kingdom I built, the infrastructure, the land, everything that I built. You expect me to step aside and watch somebody else do that? Watch somebody else take control of the place that I built? I already have to commit ego death, and then you want me to step aside and watch that happen?
not gonna happen.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They'll never give up control because they'll eventually, as they get closer to having to reset and step down, the paranoia will set in. The fear sets in, and they'll push it off. And then eventually, you have Catlon.
No.
Heroes Dyslexic in YouTube comments try to help. No. That's not what it is. I have issues, but it ain't that. No, I don't. What is it? I don't want YouTube to give us the ye old smackums for saying
YouTube
certain words.
Guys, you have to understand. There are some trigger words that YouTube's automation just filters out, and if they hear a certain word, then our podcast or videos they don't show up as often.
Yeah, they get flagged.
It's a very sensitive topic. It gets shadow banned, so to speak, shadow flagged, and then you won't even notice that. You won't even notice that, but your video just gets dropped out.
Just drops right out. So we got to be careful. So we don't say the actual word sometimes because YouTube gets a little finicky. But yeah, that's where we are. But yeah. All right. Do you? It's okay to say unalive. I think I hate to say unalive because it makes me feel like a TikTok brain moron. In full transparency, it just oh god, I hate it, dude. I hate that stuff. I'd rather say like a funny thing like commit Sudoku or commit crossword because then it's kind of funny. Yeah. I hate saying like pew pew and unalive and stuff. I hate it. I'll find my own ways to adhere to the community guidelines. Damn it.
I was born in the generation where we said Sudoku, and I stick with Sudoku.
Yeah,
I'm officially a boomer.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. All right. So, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up, Pato? We're getting near the end time. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to talk about with the skeletons before we finish up? We got about up between 7 and 5 minutes left, depending. Anything you want to talk about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Honestly, I'm not really. I'm feeling a bit exhausted. I'm a bit sick, as you guys can see, and again, thank you, Hero, for carrying this episode. I mean, I hope one day I'll be so extravagant and elegant with words as you are. It's probably not going to happen. But hey, guys, at least you have me saying. No. But I always look at like this. Hero is like the intelligent guy who's telling the stories, who's articulating really well. And while Hero is doing this, you can hear him in the back. Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper. No. Stop it.
I'm here for the comedic relief. That's what I'm here for. You know.
Oh
but
man,
I'm rolling with that. That's fine. All
right, guys. Then I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. I think we'll call it for this one. And yeah, as always, guys, we appreciate you. Hopefully, during the next podcast episode, Pato, once Pato's feeling better. And I'm fully back because I'm still not 100%. My voice is still a little shifty. I still got a cough. Once we're both 100% again, we'll give you guys two podcast episodes in 1 week. We were going to do it this week because we missed last week because of me. Then Pato got sick, so we had to hold it. We'll give you a double as soon as we're feeling better again.
But I just want to clarify one thing. Usually when the podcast is not on a Thursday or when it's not 2 episodes, it's usually on me because I've been really busy with real life recently. You know, I have my own company. I have lots of stuff to do. And Hero is usually the guy who makes the time. But I'm like, hey, Hero, I'm sorry. Can we schedule another day? Can we do that? Because there's lots of stuff going on right now.
So busy.
If you guys want to blame someone, it's me. You can blame me. Okay.
The goal, guys, that means what we need to do, guys, is we need to get the podcast to blow up so that way Pato can just do this as his job.
Yeah.
and then we'll all be fine. Then every regular, all the time, live episodes weekly. The whole that's what we need.
If YouTube, I just want to say, if YouTube would make me more money than my company would do right now, I would just say fuck you, company. Okay, but we have to. We are living in a world where you know it's not fairies and butter dust and so on.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I have to pay my bills somehow.
Yeah, and, you know the other thing too is again, unlike Pato, he's got his company and all that stuff and his real world obligations. YouTube is my job now, so like I'm far more flexible. Typically, is what it is. So like it's not Pato's fault. for being busy. Just like it's not like a plus for me that I have more free time or flexibility. It's just the nature of what our lives are right now. So
Oh, wait. Hero doesn't have any free time. I just want to say that Hero is like literally sacrificing so many fucking hours.
That's true.
On YouTube, I swear to God.
Hato saying you get all confused. I was up till 4 a.m. editing last night. Yeah. I'm up till 3:30, 4 o'clock most mornings, and then I wake up at like 9:30, and I have my kids and all that stuff, and I'm editing and writing and all that stuff. I actually don't have much free time, but I am flexible is what it is. But that's just because I have the ability to be flexible. So that's all it is.
Yeah. But you're killing your review. I just want to say that then if someone deserves it, it's Hero, because he's literally putting in so many fucking hours. And I'm not biased here because we're buddies. It's not about that, but it's literally he's putting in so much work, so he deserves it. Thanks. So give him a kiss. I want you to give him a smoochie on his ball.
Right here, all up here. Fill my head with smooches.
Okay, enough ass kisses. Okay.
Oh man! All right, we managed to filibuster 5 more minutes in. We're good now. Good. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you. Pato appreciates you. Thank you guys for coming out. We will see you guys in the next episode. Next, we're going to start hitting the factions of Kenshi. So we're gonna be talking about some of the factions next. So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.